Geoff, what did you think of what Aaron Rodgers said about Jordan Love pouring himself 4 fingers of tequila, thinking that his tenure with the Packers has a lot less time left than maybe he anticipated?
When this happened, when they drafted Jordan Love, I came out and said that basically Rodgers was most likely done in a year or two in Green Bay, and that he was not prepared and did not want to be his mentor, right? And Packers fans would rip me. Well, how do you know that? Because this is what always happens, right? It's very rare that a quarterback goes out of his way to mentor his replacement. There's a difference between Aaron Rodgers just answering Jordan Love's questions in the media room, right? There's another of him like, hey, man, come over to my house. Let's get to know each other. Let me help you out any way I can. Well, he's not going to do that, right? It's very clear. He even mentioned he wanted to draft a wide receiver. He mentioned guys that he specifically was looking at, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, like guys that he was expecting them to draft to help him out. So yeah, he knows he's gone in a year or two, and then then Jordan will be the Jordan Love time. So he might be gone after the season. His contract though just is very hard to trade. And that's the concern, I think, especially next season when the cap is probably not going to go up at all. It might be down. It's going to be difficult for a team to take on that contract.
So if Aaron Rodgers were to leave, we were just talking about this, where would it make sense for him to go? Like when you look around, and I know a lot can change in a year in the NFL, but let's presume that after a year he's on the trading block, there's some sort of sign and trade deal that could be worked out. Where would it make sense for him to end up?
I could see New England, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll need a quarterback. They might, as much as they're losing a lot of players off their roster now, I don't think it's a coincidence a little bit. I think there's a little bit too, like, hey, man, we don't have a chance to win this year. Belichick's worked us pretty hard. I'm going to take a year and figure things out. New England's one of them. I could see the Vegas Raiders. If Carr doesn't work out this year, I mean, can you imagine how much fun John Gruden would have with Aaron Rodgers in that offense, and how much joy he would get from a quarterback like that? That could be an option as well. There's a couple teams that might pop up that might ditch their quarterbacks and need to get someone else. But I just think with the salary that he will command next year, plus, like I mentioned, the cap. I mean, they've set a minimum, I think, at 175. Which, if it gets to that, and that obviously would mean that there weren't a lot of games played this year, someone affording that contract is going to take up 25, 30% of your salary cap. That doesn't seem like something that's really going to happen.
All right, let's go. You just mentioned the idea of the Patriots, 6 different players deciding not to play this season. What's going on there?
Okay, I'm not gonna speculate too much because I know that every player has their own reason to sit out. I believe one of the Patriots players is a cancer survivor. A couple of those guys are pretty old and have newborns and things like that. But look, I mean, are you telling me that if Tom Brady was playing this season and they had a chance to win a title, the guys would opt out? I don't know. I think that they probably wouldn't. I know that Belichick works those guys really hard. Last season they had a flu. A couple guys had the flu, or maybe 20 guys. They flew in different planes to an away game, and they kind of pushed through it. And I think players are like, I don't know if this is going to work as well in New England. But I definitely think there's medical reasons why they sat out. But I do think that if they had a chance to win a title this year, I don't know if guys would do that. And here's the thing about players sitting out is, look, a lot of these guys, undrafted free agents, there are some sitting out. Their careers might never start now, right? So they're basically saying, hey, look, I'm sitting out this year. I know that I might not have a career after this. Older guys, Pat Chung, Dante Hightower on the Patriots, Marcus Cannon. Look, there's a chance that they're not ever back in the NFL again, and they know that, and they know that the risk they're taking sitting out for that reason. So, guys have various reasons why they're doing it, and they know, especially the older players and the really, really young players, that this might be the end of their career.
So, as you think about the decision that some of these NFL players are making about whether or not to come back, what do you think? Like, so put yourself in this scenario. Like, let's pretend that you're at the end of your career. I mean, assuming if you're in your second or third year and you're trying to, prove that you still have several years left to play, you're going to come back if you're not a star, right? Because you don't want to just lose your roster spot over this. But how would you be thinking about this? Like, let's pretend that you're in your 6th or 7th year in the NFL. You ended up playing 8. How would you have worked through a decision like this?
Well, I would play. I mean, I talked to my wife about this yesterday. It's so funny how my wife has this revisionist history of how things always went, because she said, well, if you're making millions of dollars, yeah, you just go away for 6 months and play football, and I'll just stay somewhere else. Your dad's at high risk, so we really can't, like, that would probably have to end up happening. What I would have to, like, basically play by myself, and she would be off somewhere else with her family, and you'd be access to her family. But, you know, she used to yell at me, like, I would go to Arizona to train while I'm making millions of dollars in the summer for 4 weeks, and she would yell at me like day 3 for not being home with her and the kid. Like, so I'm like, what are you talking about? You used to cuss me out the third day I was gone for 4 weeks to train to get ready for the season, and you be finally just being away for 6 months. I don't think so. So, look, I would play.
That's also, by the way, maybe a sign that you've been married a lot of years and you don't matter as much now, too. Because I think my wife, like maybe in year, 1 of having a kid, she'd have been like, oh, no way you're going away for 6 months. We've been married 16 years. I think she'd be like, if you want to take a year, we'll be fine. So I think there's probably some time of marriage that's factored in there.
We've been married 6 years, but we've been together 12. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's part of it. And so look, I would play. I think look. Here's the thing. You go to the Lions Twitter feed, Detroit Lions, and they put a video up yesterday of the precautions to get the coronavirus. Probably, like, there is so much they're doing to make sure it does not spread the facility. Look, the Marlins situation, they're on the road, they were traveling. A guy went out to a bar or two, which again, that's players have to take personal responsibility this season to not do that. The ones that aren't in a bubble, and so you're really not going to get it at the facility. So it's a matter of doing what you have to do off the field to stay as safe as possible. And so I think that I, as a player, would feel comfortable going to the facility, seeing, obviously wearing a mask there, keeping away as best I can. Now, practice, you can't avoid it. Practice is the one place where you're going to have to do it. I know Dr. Chow has mentioned that the viral load it takes, right? That's not very likely in a football game or practice where the virus will actually take hold in your body, especially if you're wearing those face shields on the helmet. So I would feel safe, very safe, in the facility, in my opinion. Going to an indoor restaurant, going to a bar, movie, a theater, like, I feel less safe there. But I think I would play. I don't think it even be a question of whether or not I would play, unless my wife, I don't think she's at risk. She was at risk. Maybe I think otherwise, or my kids, but they're not. And so I would play.
There's been a lot of talk about the NFL players being outside of the bubble. I want to get into that a little bit with you. But first, I feel like a lot of people don't really sit down and think about how little travel there actually is involved in an NFL season compared to a lot of other pro sports where you might be on the road all the time. Baseball, obviously, but even the NBA, certainly the MLS, the NHL, those guys are on planes traveling all over the place all the time. Theoretically, in an NFL season, you only have to be away from home for 8 days. And some of these trips, I'm curious what you think. I'll get to that in a sec. But kind of for an average person out there who doesn't think about this, a weekend in the NFL where you're going on the road to play looks like what?
Yeah, so if it's within 4 or 5 hours, if it's not like a coast to coast trip, you leave Saturday in the morning. You have a walk through the morning. You get dressed, you go on the plane. You typically arrive at the hotel of your away team you're playing at 4 p.m. You then get 3 or 4 hours off to hang out with family, go eat, which is not going to be allowed this year. You will not be allowed to leave the hotel. And then you have team meetings for an hour and a half at the most. And you have a snack at 9 o'clock, and you're in bed, or you're playing cards, you're hanging out with your teammates, and then lights out at 11, and you play the game the next day on Sunday, and then you fly immediately home. You go right from the game to the airport, and you're off in a way. So you're back home Sunday night most times. If you're flying across the country, you might go on Friday. You might go a day early, and then Friday about 2 or 3, you're off until Saturday. So that probably won't happen this year, to avoid players leaving the hotel. But they've already outlined it. No Ubers in away trip, in away games. No leaving the hotel. No eating outside food. no congregating in the lobby and things like that. Like they're cracking down on those things. But yes, you're only going to be gone, for 8 days a year essentially to play your game. Unlike baseball, or I guess basketball is not going anywhere. Baseball really, where you can be active in the city.
Yeah. So if you're going to, and you kind of hinted at this, but if you're going to get sick, it's going to be because of a choice that you make in your hometown, right, where your team is located, not based on anything that is likely to happen. I mean, it's certainly anything can happen, but I would imagine for most of those travel situations, the number of people you're coming into contact with is pretty low. So it seems like the NFL travel universe is not going to be that dangerous.
No.
I mean, and you guys, by the way, I should mention this too. You guys aren't going through the airport security typically, right? Like you're on like a private plane or a chartered plane or whatever else. So it's a different vibe in that way as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we just go to the tarmac and bounce. So yes, it should be safer in the facility. I've said for a while now that I think the biggest risk to a football season is the activities off the field. We saw yesterday the University of Arizona suspended and reduced a scholarship of an offensive lineman who was a starting right tackle. It wasn't like a backup, who wasn't following the protocols in the facility, wasn't wearing a mask, wasn't distancing. I don't think he was doing what he was supposed to do off the field, and they suspended him basically. And so that's what we're going to see this year. The NFL and the NFLPA have talked about fining players for being in the wrong place, and this is one of those years where it's just going to be not fair. It's not going to be fair. It has not been a fair year. If you're an athlete who likes to go party, you just can't do it this year, right? You just can't, and that's going to be a responsibility of the players. Baseball, 95% of baseball, 99% of baseball has been fine, right? 0 positive tests, but the Marlins decided to go out, and they got sick, and that's what's going to happen. And so you have to avoid those situations, and it depends on the state you're in too. I've talked about this with the Pac-12, kind of breaking away and doing their own thing, is that a lot of the areas in the Pac-12 don't even have bars open or indoor restaurants open. And that's helpful, in my opinion, to keeping their athletes healthy, is that they don't even have the option to go to places where you can super spread. Churches are closed, right? So that's why I think that I like this kind of conference-only schedule on the college side, is because there are places out west where you can't really get in trouble. And the positive test numbers have been very low for Pac-12 facilities so far. So, yes, it's a responsibility of the players to make sure that they do what they can off the field to not bring the virus in the facility. We're
talking to Geoff Schwartz. In your experience, how many guys on a team are just not going to listen, both college and the NFL? Like, this, you're a parent, like every parent knows this too. You can have a bunch of kids, teachers certainly know this. You can go over everything with your class. You can go over everything with your kids, and there's still just a certain segment of knucklehead that is not going to listen even after you've laid it all out for them. How many people realistically in an NFL locker room or a college locker room do you think that might be? And is there a difference, right? In college, are coaches able to take more control than they are in the NFL, or vice versa? How would you assess the locker room when it comes to, clearly what happened with the Marlins is some of those players just didn't listen. I mean, that certainly I think is likely to happen on some level in every team locker room, in every sport in America. What have you typically seen in situations like that?
Well, look, let's just say there's 53 guys that are on the roster for the regular season. There's 10 practice squad players. There's a couple injured guys. I mean, the practice squad players are the guys that I'd watch out for. I was on the practice squad. I know how it is on a Friday, Saturday night when you have nothing to do. You go out, and you show up in the morning and you work out, and a bunch of guys throw up and but they're going out. I would say that the 53 rostered guys. Look, there's probably going to be 5%, right, that just aren't going to listen, and maybe more. But if examples are set as far as early on, like, hey, we're going to fine you if you're in a place you're not supposed to be. And look, all these NFL teams have spies everywhere, man. Like, there's no chance that you're going to be able to go out in any place remotely close to the facility.
The coach will know.
And they don't know about it. Yes, yeah, they'll know about it. So. If people come down hard on players who do this, then it will set an example for other players that, hey, we're not doing this. So I've heard on the college side, too, there's been a push from the veterans on the team, the seniors, to keep the young players, the freshmen, kind of out of trouble. So I like to hear that because, look, these seniors want to play football. It's their last opportunity to shine for NFL scouts. Maybe someone who's ever played football, and they want their season to happen. And, again, the number one issue, I cannot say this enough, it's what happens off the field. Not the facilities. The facilities are going to be fine. They put all the money into it. They're going to be fine at the facility. They're testing all the time. It's a matter of staying healthy off the field.
One of the things, obviously, that is going to be a major issue is guys testing positive, and then not feeling like they are sick at all. And then you're immediately going to have to go get 15 different tests and run it through and every other aspect associated with this. How much do you think guys will try to hide, right? So I think in the NFL, you can correct me, you may have read the protocols. I think the talk is they're going to test on Wednesday once the season actually gets started, right? What happens if a Patrick Mahomes gets test positive, but he feels 100% fine? How many tests do they give him before they say, okay, you're not able to play?
Yeah, that's all written down in the protocols. I feel like you have to have like 2 negatives in a row to be eligible to play. After you test positive. So I mean that's the protocol. The thing about what happened with the Marlins is that they didn't follow their protocol, right?
Yeah.
They had 4 players test positive, and they played anyways, even though they were told not to play. So like if you just follow the protocols that you put in place in the NFL, I think it's now very clear, unfairly got bashed for like not being prepared for COVID. They have these infectious disease plans through every team, and so if you just follow what you researched and what you put together as far as how to do this, then it will work. And the Marlins didn't listen. They didn't listen. They should have shut down and quarantined, and they would have just not had half their team sick. You have to probably be out now for at least 2 weeks. And so if you do what the protocols tell you to do, then you should be able to survive a season. And I do think there's going to be a time this year where it does run rampant through an NFL team. It just feels like very clearly obvious. And they're going to do what the Marlins did. They're just not going to play. And it's not fair. Sure, a team might only have 14 games. Well, so be it. You can't shut down the whole operation because one team got sick. It was interesting to see. And look, I'm not a subscriber as much as you are into kind of the fear porn idea of the way the media covers coronavirus, especially sports media. But, once the Marlins had the thing run through their team, a lot of people were very negative on social media about football. And my whole thing was like, look, let's see how the Phillies test, right? And the Phillies tested negative. But you can still play with one less team. Like once the ship starts, you're not going to stop because one team test positive. It's not March in the NBA where you don't know nothing about coronavirus. This is now known, and you can continue to play with one team just sitting out. Is it fair? No, but it's not fair right now. Life's not fair. So if football continues to play, which I think it will, and one team runs through their locker room, they're just not going to play for 2 weeks. And the teams they play for 2 weeks get forfeit wins. It's just the way it is.
77% of my audience, Geoff, over 50,000 people voted. They said that at least based on reading sports media members' Twitter feeds, and this was in the wake of the Miami Marlins debacle, that it felt like to them that many sports media members were rooting against sports. And what you just hinted at is like a lot of people immediately said, oh my God, there's no way you can play college football. There's no way you can play the NFL. It's got to shut down Major League Baseball. There was a lot of that, right? As soon as the Marlins positives came out. And now, multiple days later, it seems like people are calming down quite a bit. But why do you think that is? What's the motivation if you cover sports to be embracing the negative as often as is occurring?
Well, I don't think they're rooting against football, right? I think that's the wrong way to frame this. I know Kyle Brandt's tweet got a lot of attention because he said they're rooting against football, and I think he kind of worded it wrong. There's obviously a lot of negativity on social media. It's kind of what social media has become, and I think a lot of people project their anxiety about coronavirus in a season, kind of through their tweets. And here's what I think, that we're seeing is that, there's the iceberg is ahead of us, right? It's COVID. We know it's there, okay? And we know that it very easily can tear apart the boat and the football season and we're done. But a lot of us say, okay, look, it's in front of us. We know it's there, but let's find ways to avoid the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
And so like for me, I'm being realistic about the chances that players get sick, what could happen to them, but also like, hey, let's find a way to make it work. That's why I've embraced the Pac-12 only schedule. That's why I've embraced what the NFL is doing. But then there are other people who very clearly see the iceberg in front of them and think it's just going to kill us, and that they don't even think about the ways they can find solutions to getting through the season with COVID. Look, I wish that our country would find a way to flatten the curve. It ain't going to happen, right? So, you have to kind of accept that reality that we're kind of in right now. And if you want to have sports back, if you want sport, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be the Marlins situation. It's going to be a situation where a team gets sick and they just don't play, and everyone else finds a way to play. Look, the MLB says, the Yankees aren't playing, the Phillies aren't playing. We'll figure it out. And
we'll unpack all this good stuff as always with Geoff Schwartz.